We're going to do another one of these redrafts. Now, I'm going to have to break the rule that I established in the first one. The first one and the second one, in both cases, I said, okay, I'm going to take the 30 guys on the board and I'm going to redraft them in an order that I think I draft them in if they were drafted right now. But the 2012 draft had a lot of guys who didn't pan out. Starting with 1 with Nail Yakupov. At 4, you've got Griffin Reinhart. 8, you've got Derek Pouliot. You got Grigorenko here. Gergenson's here. I know Gergenson's has come around lately, but he's not going to be drafted 14th overall. And then, you've got a pretty good run after that. You get into Jankowski, who had 17 goals a couple years back. I'm not sure where he's at right now. Subban, of course, was drafted in the first round by the Bruins. I was quite happy when Subban was drafted by the Bruins. I thought, good, this is their future starter. And then Vancouver drafted Gauntz. Again, I was happy when Gauntz. I was like, yeah, all right, Gauntz, that's good. It's a center. That's what they need. And I remember that draft looking at Pouliot and Mata going to Pittsburgh and thinking, wow, Pittsburgh's they're going to be a dynasty with the way that they're drafting these defensemen. That was the one part of their team that looked like it was a weakness, and they came out of that draft looking like complete and total winners. This is why I don't declare winners during drafts, because you can look kind of foolish later, where you're like, I declare this team the winner, and whoops. Yeah, it turns out those prospects, those 18-year-olds, weren't quite as good as I thought they were. So, if we're going to redo this draft, you got to go 1 through 30, and I'm going to use the book because I had to go through this draft a couple of times and say, all right, so who would be drafted in the top 30 right now? And once you get down to the mid-20s, there are other players who could be mentioned. So, some of the guys who are on the board are not going to be mentioned in this. So at number 1 overall, instead of Nail Yakupov going to the Edmonton Oilers, now would a Vezina level goaltender go first overall in this draft? They just might. Or do I want to go with? See, I really like Riley too. But you've got Forsberg down here at 11. He's gonna be great for the Caps, huh? Sorry. Parayko, Slavin. Slavin would be ahead of Morgan Riley. Is Jacob Slavin a number 1 overall pick? Parayko. There's St. Louis Blues fans saying, yeah, take Parayko. There's Lightning fans saying, what about Vasilevsky? I don't know that we would have had a clear number 1 that year. Yeah, I don't know that we would have had a clear number 1 that year, even if we knew what we knew now. And there were a lot of good goaltenders in this draft, too. Yeah. Jacob Slavin was taken 120th overall that year. I'll go ahead and say he goes first. At number 2, Columbus drafts at 2. I'll go with Colton Parayko to Columbus instead of Ryan Murray. Colton Parayko was taken 86th overall. Next up would be Montreal. Now this is where I'm going to start thinking, well, what's the biggest need? Well, and again, I would love to take a goalie here, but there's only so long that you can deny Philip Forsberg his spot. And of course, he was 11th on the board on the original. So that's the top 3. And again, this is definitely open for debate. Number 4. Vasilevsky moves up from 19 to 4. So yeah, that gets Vasilevsky off of there. Does Morgan Riley still go to the Leafs at 5? What do you guys think? Morgan Riley still goes at 5? He may very well. Matt Dumba's pretty good too. Wouldn't it be weird if Tom Wilson had been drafted by the Leafs, huh? It is hard to deny Morgan Riley that spot still. So he stays at 5. At 6. Jacob Trouba moves up from 9th to the number 6 spot. He goes to Anaheim, which means Lindholm's moving down. I know there are likely going to be people who don't like that, because that's how these things work. I can't keep moving Hellebuck down, though. I do like Lindholm a lot. Lindholm's a real workhorse. Hurdle's fantastic as well. I'm not forgetting Hurdle. Hurdle's right on the board here. Both literally and on my book. So I'm going to go with Hampus next up. So he drops in the draft. For anybody wondering about Nail Yakupov, sorry. So, sorry if you're looking for Yakupov. You could be looking for a while. Number 8. Connor Hellebuck has proven he is a workhorse in the net. And so I'd have him go next. And the funny thing is, I remember watching this draft and being really, really excited about who was going where. And, you know, Ryan Murray wouldn't be slipping the way he is if it wasn't for health reasons. So he's never healthy. It's so it seems. Number 9. There's no use yelling at the screen. I can't hear you. Number 9. Going to Winnipeg. Tomas Hertl, who moves up from 17th to 9. So Hertl, San Jose property, would now be Winnipeg property instead of Jacob Trouba, who went to Anaheim. And it's all chaos at this stage. So that's your top 9. Number 10. Do I want to put Dumba at 10? No. Remember when Teuvo Teravainen was drafted by Chicago, and the belief was that the Chicago Blackhawks had basically got away with theft, that he had slid down to them in the draft, and that he could be an absolute steal for the Hawks. Now I have him going in the top 10. So again, top 10, and it's worth doing a bit of a review here before we move on. I have Jacob Slavin at 1. Leave your comments about how wrong that is in the comment section below. Colton Parayko at number 2. He was 86th overall that year. Philip Forsberg at 3. Andrei Vasilevsky at 4. I still have Morgan Riley at 5. Jacob Trouba at 6. Hampus Lindholm at 7. So a run on defenseman here. Connor Hellebuck at 8. Tomas Hertl at 9. And Teuvo Teravainen at 10. A fantastic forward who doesn't probably get the amount of credit that he deserves. So we're up to number 11. I would lean towards Tom Wilson, but there are still some really interesting names on this piece of paper. I know, you can't see it. At 11, you know what? It's just too much. There's too much with Wilson not to still have him get taken. It's too much not to have Tom Wilson actually move up from 16 to 11 in the draft. Just the physical ability of Tom Wilson to be agitating and a scorer at the same time, and he can fight. It's too much not to take him at 11. At 12, we see Buffalo go off the board. And moving up from 60th overall is Damon Severson. And boy howdy, if the Buffalo Sabres had Damon Severson on their blue line, we'd be having a different discussion, I think, about the Sabres. That blue line and how it's composed is a big part of the issue for Buffalo. They tried to fix it in the offseason last year. Didn't work. I think they're going to try again this offseason. We'll see if it works out better than the last attempt at it. But I would have Severson going at 12. I would have him ahead of some of these other guys. 13. I'll have Dallas not draft Foxa. Although Foxa's going in the first round. And instead I'll have them draft a goaltender as well. And it is an interesting draft when you look at it, in that there's going to be that's not the end of the goaltenders here. That if you redraft, a lot of goalies go in the first round. So does that mean that we should see goalies go in the first round more often, or is that damning of this draft class? Let me know in the comment section below how you feel about that. So we're down to 14th. And at 14th, I will put another defenseman in Buffalo. I apologize to Buffalo fans. It's going to feel like I'm picking on them at this point. Matt Dumba drops from, he's what, 7th? He drops down to 14th. And Matt Dumba to Buffalo. You have Severson and Dumba in Buffalo. Solve a lot of their problems right there. So at number 15, we now have the Ottawa Senators on the board. Because some of these guys have had down years, and some of them have played very, very well. I feel like some of them will probably bounce back, but again, this is where they're at right now. So if you're waiting for Ghost, I've got Ghost on here. I still don't think Ghost goes before any of these guys. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to go with this. So we'll go with another defenseman to the Ottawa Senators. Esa Lindell at 74. Now, if you're a Blues fan, you remember him as the guy that dove in the playoffs last year. I get it. But Esa Lindell is an excellent defenseman, and this year for Dallas, he has been pretty fantastic. Arguably their best defenseman. And I say arguably because if you say that, Heiskanen supporters are going to jump up and go, wait a second. And John Klingberg fans are going to jump up and go, hey. And they're all right. You could argue any of those three defensemen. But Lindell has been a beast. He's a minute muncher. He's fantastic. So I'm not going to have Lindell fall further in the draft than this. The next one to go off the board. No, I don't like that one here either. Also to Washington. Moving up in the draft. Scott Laughton. Call Philadelphia. Say you want to work out a trade. Mentions you want Scott Laughton back, and apparently they hang up. That was the rumor on the trade deadline. They love Scott Laughton in Philadelphia. He does a little bit of everything. And if you had Laughton and Wilson out of that draft, I know what Forsberg was, but of course they didn't keep Forsberg. So the idea of Laughton and Wilson probably better than Martin Erat. So just throwing that out there. So we are a little past the halfway mark. We're into Scott Laughton. And yeah, I can't let this one slide any further. Now, his season this year hasn't been fantastic. But really, how far does Matt Murray fall in this draft? So there's another goaltender for you. Matt Murray, 2 Stanley Cup wins. And that second Stanley Cup, he played a major role in it. I remember making videos during those playoffs about how I felt that Murray and Marc-Andre Fleury could have co-held the Conn Smythe, and I didn't get any arguments. I didn't have anybody saying, oh, that's crazy. Matt Murray in the playoffs just turns into something else. And so, should we have playoffs in 2020? It'll be interesting to see how Matt Murray does, because he had an off year last year. Pittsburgh had an off year last year in the playoffs, 0-4 and all that. But I still think Matt Murray is excellent. I still think he would have gone at least this high. Okay. So formerly of Philadelphia no longer, 78th overall draft pick, Shane Gostisbehere. I know Gostisbehere's had a down year, but he's young, should bounce back, and the points are just too much for me not to have him going at 18th. He was taken 78th overall originally. So, Ghost goes here, goes to Chicago, and a pretty solid overall defenseman for them. Now, drafting at 19th, I'm not taking him yet. Yeah, 19th. Radek Faksa. So he drops from 13th to 19th. Still taken in the first round. Faksa is an underrated player for fans that don't watch Dallas. But for fans who watch Dallas regularly, he does a little bit of everything. He's very good in the face-off circle. He's a very poised player. And the nice thing with Radek Faksa is he was drafted with offensive intentions in mind, I would think, for the team. And he refound his game. He remolded his game at the minor level. And he's become a much better player as a result. So Fox is one of those guys who reinvented themselves when they needed to. And I like him. I guess that's just the best way to put it. I think he's a good player. I like him quite a bit. Number 20. I can't drop this guy any further. I know he hasn't had a fantastic season either, but the goal scoring is there. So, Andreas Athanasiou. I'll go with him 20th. Edmonton, if they can turn him around and get him scoring the way he did last season in Detroit, he's a keeper. He's fantastic. And, he's got that pure skill. He's got that ability to take over a game. It's a matter of the consistency. So, the frustrating part with him is the consistency of it. At 21, yeah. I like Mata at 21. So he moves up one spot. He ends up basically the same spot he was last time. Mata, good defenseman. I know he wasn't... there weren't a lot of Pittsburgh fans who were all that upset that he got traded, but I still think there's a good top four defenseman there. There's always going to be budgetary reasons why players get traded out of Pittsburgh. Certain organizations are always going to be at or near the cap because success does that. Success means that a player is going to ask for more money. In Mata's case, he gets it. I still think there's a good top four defenseman there. So I'll take Mata there. And then at the next spot, I'll take another defenseman. Brady Shea moves up from 28 to 22. So Brady Shea, who's now with the Carolina Hurricanes, and we'll see how long he's a member of the Hurricanes, but Brady Shea, pretty solid all around. And again, the Rangers, every year they shed a defenseman. So when the Rangers trade a defenseman, I kind of expect him to improve. That does seem to be the case. And don't worry, for players that don't get selected, I will go through this board after. And for the players that are not in the first round, I'll explain either quickly or as much as I possibly can. Number 23. Do I want to? Yeah, I'm going to go with another goaltender. I don't want to draft Korpisalo too soon. Korpisalo, very good season this year, but his body work before this, he was okay. He wasn't fantastic. This year, he looks fantastic for the most part. And so I acknowledge he would be taken in the first round of the draft. I don't know that he would get taken before here, though. Because, again, does it translate into further seasons? Is this a one and done? Is this 1 year where he looks great? And then beyond here, he's going to be okay, but not necessarily great starting material. So for me, Korpisalo, I put at 23. But again, he does get in there. He was 62 in the original draft. Next up is going to be... I'm remember when Tanner Pearson was drafted 30th overall by LA, and I thought that was a great move. Pearson, I believe this was the second time through the draft. So there were teams that were passing on him because he was older, and they thought, well, he had good stats, but that was an overage year. And so Pearson, there was this stigma there that he wasn't really a first round draft pick. So LA picks him up, and he's been very good right out of the gate. Had a tough time towards the end in LA, and of course over in Pittsburgh. But this year in Vancouver, he's been fantastic. And yeah, I think Pearson would get drafted at this stage. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 left. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I'm just making sure I'm not missing anybody here. Colton Sissons at 50. Was at 50. Now he's drafted by the St. Louis Blues at 25. Sorry, so half the 50. He gets called a lot sooner. Colton Sissons has been excellent for the Nashville Predators. Again, both ends of the rink. He has that. He would have been a captain in the 80s, is my belief with him. When you had not as many star players that were necessarily your captains, and you'd have the worker at both ends of the rink that was the captain. Your Guy Carbonneau types, you know what I'm talking about. Next is, and he's had a rough time. He has, and then putting him down at the Canucks draft pick. Yeah, all right. He may very well end up with the Canucks. I wouldn't be surprised this offseason to see the Canucks throw some money at him, because Alex Galchenyuk, the pure talent is still there. We saw that Arizona last year had 19 goals. He had a 30-goal season in Montreal. The talent is there. The night-to-night drive to use that would seem to be the issue. At least that seems to be why Pittsburgh wanted to move on from him, even when they didn't have enough forwards. They were like, well, we need another forward. We're dangling Galchenyuk. Wait, what? Why? But yeah, Galchenyuk's had a struggle. He has looked better since going to Minnesota. We'll see whether or not that continues. And when he becomes a free agent, where does he go? Does he end up going to Vancouver? I would not be surprised. He has all the earmarks of a guy who would end up going to Vancouver. He's had a down year. It may very well drop his demands. Vancouver's a team that doesn't have a ton of cap space for next season. And yeah, right. So if they can't hold on to Toffoli, Galchenyuk might be the consolation prize for Vancouver fans. And who knows, maybe the 28th team he plays for gets it done. It's been a lot. He's been around a lot of teams in a very short period of time. He definitely has that journeyman look. If things don't work out where he signs in the offseason, if he doesn't stay in Minnesota, he may very well become one of those journeymen who ends up on 9 or 10 teams before his career's over. And after him, all right. Moving up from 95th overall, Josh Anderson of the Columbus Blue Jackets. Josh Anderson had a great year last year. If he was having that year this year, I would have him probably ahead of Faksa. He's not. So because this season has been filled with injuries, and when he has played, he has a grand total of 1 goal, I can't justify having Anderson higher than that. Can't. To me, Anderson would still be first round, but late. Until we see whether or not he can bounce back from what's been an absolutely disastrous season to this point, I don't know. Because unlike some of the other drafts that I've looked at already, a lot of these guys are already established. We kind of know what they are. With Anderson, I don't know. Is he the guy who had all those goals last year, or is he going to be a 15, 20 goal guy? I don't know that we know the answer to that. So yeah, Anderson comes off the board, which leaves us with 3 guys left. All right. Moving up from the 101st pick is Cedric Paquette of the Tampa Bay Lightning. He goes 28th overall to the Rangers. Paquette, capable of anything. And I will say this, if he didn't play in Tampa and he played somewhere else, he could score more. Look at what JT Miller's done in Vancouver. There are other players in Tampa that if they had an expanded role with a different team would score more. Paquette would definitely be capable of that. That's why I've got him in the first round. So when people say, well, why would Paquette go in the first round? Well, A, it was a rather weak draft, and B, it just, yeah, I think he'd go in the first round. I just do. All right, number 29. And this guy would go a lot higher too, but it's a matter of staying healthy. When he's healthy, I like Ryan Murray. I think Ryan Murray's a good player. The problem's been staying healthy. I think Ryan Murray can be an excellent defenseman. I think he's a really good top four defenseman. But because of health issues and him being unable to stay in the lineup, I can't have him any higher than 29th. Which is sad. So now we're at 30. And I'm not sure. I know who I've got written down for 30. I had Cody Ceci down for 30. This is where it gets tough. Do you draft Cody Ceci before Girgensons? Probably. Do you draft him before Mike Matheson? I don't know. I don't know that you do. Matheson, of course, famously disliked by the Canucks fans based on, stuff that happened last year. But I like Matheson. I think he's a good defenseman. Now, Cuckoo, there's no way he belongs ahead of that. Pouliot, no. Reinhardt, yeah, right. Grigorenko, no. And as I said, Girgensons, I can't see you putting Girgensons ahead of them. You know what? I'm leaning towards at 30. I'll do it. I'll bite the bullet on this one. So, again, Mike Matheson goes at 23. I'll say Cody Ceci goes at 32. So, Matheson drops from 23 to 30. And then you get Ceci at 31. I think Jankowski might go at 32. And, it's a tricky draft to do. And I look forward to doing other draft classes. But this one I did change the rules where, yes, I had to pick guys that were outside of the top, because if I didn't pick guys that were outside of the first round, once I get down to right about here, I'm just throwing names on the board. Malcolm Subban could very well turn his career around, but to this stage, I still don't see a starting goaltender. Decent enough backup, sure. Starting goaltender, no. So let's go through it. Nail Yakupov, well, he's out of the league. I don't see him coming back. Griffin Reinhart didn't make it. Famously, of course, the Oilers gave up a lot to try to get him, thinking he might turn it around, and it didn't happen. Derek Pouliot, currently in the American Hockey League, at least on the rosters at the roster freeze. Slater Cuckoo, top 6 defenseman for Chicago, does take some penalties out there. Has never really reached that top 10 slot, what you would expect from that. Mikhail Grigorenko did not last in the NHL very long. Zemgus Girgensons, decent, but fourth line. And that's why, I don't see the upside that I could see with Paquette if he was somewhere else, because Girgensons is in Buffalo. So maybe a trade for Girgensons is necessary for him to really reach that next level. Maybe we see him get moved this summer. I can't see it, though, because he is a hard worker, and it feels like the team likes him, and I haven't heard anything about him being unhappy. Jankowski, again, 17-goal season, great and all that, but I don't think he'd go in the first round. I remember that being seen as a reach at the time. Matheson is here. Subban, not in the first round. And the odd part is you've got a number of goaltenders moving up into top 10, and Subban's right here. If the Boston Bruins had drafted Hellebuck instead of Subban, we would have been very surprised, but boy, would that have looked brilliant right now. Schmaltz, of course, is in the minors. Gauntz is in the minors. Samuelson never came up and played in the NHL. As far as I know, he didn't get a game in. And then there's Stefan Matteau, who, while he was recently brought in by Columbus and started scoring, that's not really his MO. That's weird. So there you go. The 2012 first round redrafted. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And hey, thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I'll talk to you again soon.